face facts. What up?
Real fans, realtalk.com. The Arthur Diamonds, Trip Young and intern Tom. For the white and black fans, agent to Manhattan. I get all my facts from my bro Mark the Stats Man. If you're not tuned in, I recommend the CAT scan. And if your brain checks out, then you deserve a backhand. Sports, gossip, all the hot topics. Real fans, realtalk.com got it. They got the hottest bloggers.
Is Jeremy Lin hurt?
We'll log onto the site and you can hear it from them first. I'm talking about the latest, I'm talking about the greatest. Go check out the archives, even tell a neighbor, tell him Bobby sent ya. From spring to winter, tuning in should be the only thing on your agenda. Certified cosign, you know what I'm about, son. Real fans, realtalk.com, I'm out, boy. Real fans, real talk, real fans, real talk. Real fans, realtalk.com. Real fans, realtalk.com. Real fans, real talk. Real fans, real talk. Real fans, realtalk.com. Real fans, realtalk.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live episode of Real Fans, Real Talk. I'm Mark the Statman Skevich. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. A lot of different sports topics to talk about. The Yankees opening day, baseball season in full effect. But before we get into all that, let me introduce my co-host, the one and only Trip Young. What's going on, Trip?
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm just waiting for them to pull me up on the screen so you guys can see me and see how good I look today. I'm very, very sexy with my...
Like Anchorman, come and see how good I look.
What's going on, though? A lot of things been going on this past week. March Madness is officially over. We have a new NCAA champion. Shout out to the tri-state area, UConn representatives and everybody. My main man, Jesus Shuttlesworth, who's an alum. I know all of those guys are happy. Kevin Ollie. Just a great week in sports. We had a little bit of Knicks Heat action a couple of days ago, and we got a big fight coming up this Saturday. I'm ready to get into all of that, though, but Statman, take it away.
All right. Well, like you said, not only did people not have perfect brackets, I don't think that anyone would have predicted that number 7 UConn would have played number 8 Kentucky, especially with the path that they had to go through. UConn beat the team that I thought was going to win, which was Michigan State, and then the other team that I thought might win, which I had in the Real Fans Real Talk bracket, was Florida, and they beat them too. And, I mean, UConn is the local team. I mean, it's Connecticut. I mean, Kemba Walker led them to a championship a couple of years back. I do root for them, but I just didn't think that they had a shot. And then on the other side, I had Louisville coming and representing the other side, and Kentucky, sure enough, beat Louisville in a hell of a matchup, and it's been a hell of a March Madness all the way through, really. I mean, forget perfect brackets. Who picked that final? I mean, that's the first time.
I don't think Obama didn't have UConn, did he?
No, he didn't. But he did. It's the first time that 2 7 seeds or worse made it to the finals since they had 64 teams, the inception back in 1985. And only now UConn becoming the second 7 team or worse to win the championship, as Villanova did it in 1985, the first year that they had it. So there was a lot of questions about the brackets and did they get it right? Should Louisville have been a 4? Now, obviously, should Kentucky have been an 8? I mean, I thought Kentucky might have taken it. Coach Calipari, that was my prediction as things went. They both had a tough road. I guess UConn had the tougher road. But, I mean, what do you think overall from all the upsets that we saw throughout the course of the tournament?
You know what? The tournament definitely, represents the name. It was definitely March Madness. You guys know I said it on the radio show this past Sunday, which is on the Blog Talk Radio Network at 7:30. I'm disappointed that Duke got bumped out so early. I always go with Duke every year. That's just my bias. But I mean, the tournament as a whole, great tournament. You get to see a lot of these guys who will be the future of the NBA, and a lot of these guys have already declared for the draft. Joel Embiid, Andrew Wiggins, Marcus Smart, who's getting a lot of praise right now. Julius Randle, we're looking at him going to the next level. But it's just been a great tournament all in all. Again, shout out to UConn, Kevin Ollie. It was a great run for those guys. And it definitely set the tone. That's the tri-state area, man. You got to represent for that. You got to love that. I'm always go with the team closer to the home team. So I think it was a great tournament. I loved every minute of it.
Speaking of the home team, you're wearing a Brooklyn Nets hat now, and your team is the Miami Heat, and they are playing tonight.
They are playing tonight. All right, let me.
I mean, I already know what it is, but
Yeah, let me break this down for you guys. Again, I gotta break this down one time. I support both teams. The Nets, I'm from Brooklyn, so automatically I am a Nets fan because we represent our borough. That's just how Brooklyn does. Now, I also support Miami because LeBron James is not only my favorite player, but he's the best player in basketball. So I gotta support them. Plus, Miami South Beach is like my second home. You guys know I was down there in VIP last year celebrating with LeBron and D Wade and all those guys when Danny Green popped up in the club and everything. I will most likely be down there this year when they celebrate this three-peat, so I'm gonna probably be down there for that as well. I like flying down there, and especially around this time, and because you get to party, you just hit straight to the clubs and whatnot, and get some of that pizza they had in the club. Everything, it's gonna be a good look. But tonight's game is definitely Nets at Miami. To be honest with you, I would like Brooklyn to get the win tonight because I really want them to make it to that third seed. I know it's going to be rough. It's only a few games left. But so I would like for Brooklyn to take it tonight. I don't know, though. Miami hasn't played well against them this season, and I know they're looking to kind of set the tone tonight. This is because it's the last game that they're going to play the Nets. Kevin Garnett just came back, but he's actually going to take the night off. He'll be back for the Orlando game. Either way, it's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. I just need D Wade to continue to rest up and get ready for the playoffs. But I'm looking forward to it because I'm glad both of those teams are in it. In the playoff run, they have solidified their spots, and we are just waiting on your team, the New York Knickerbockers, to see
I
if
only
they
have one team. There is no, I like this team and I like that team, and if this team plays that team, none of that stuff. I'm a Knicks fan.
Well, does it make it better that both my teams are in the playoffs and your team is straddling around the fence?
Well, I mean, your probability of at least one of them making it when you have two is higher than somebody that just has one.
That's true.
Still sticking with the game tonight, the Nets are the Heat are 0-3 against the Nets, and only 3 teams in NBA history have won a championship after being swept by a team of 4-0, 0-4 on the regular season. So, do you think the fact that you're wearing a Nets hat might jinx them with the loss tonight?
Well, if you notice, I still got the Miami red and black on Miami, so I'm trying to represent for both teams at the same time. I mean, my idea would be for LeBron to come to Brooklyn and play for the Nets. Then I'll be great. I won't have to do anything else. But no, I'm a rep for both of them. Listen, I'm from Brooklyn. Like I said, we both from Brooklyn, so I'm always going to represent for the home team. That's just how we do. Anywhere you go, Brooklyn is in the house, so definitely going to rep for that. But like I said, tonight I would prefer Brooklyn to get the win tonight because they need it more. I think Miami is pretty much going to lock up the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, especially with the poor play of the Indiana Pacers as of late. There's a lot of turmoil and friction going on in that locker room, which is working out to Miami's benefit. So,
all right. Well, official pick, you're going for Miami here tonight, obviously. I mean,
well, I would say, I think Miami will win tonight, but I would rather Brooklyn get it because they need this game more. Usually, when it's Brooklyn versus Miami, I just let the coin fall where it may. I really don't care. I sit back, put my feet up.
All right. Well, speaking of local home teams, we're going to get back to basketball in a bit, but the Yankees did have their opening day yesterday with Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter playing well, obviously, showing the championship mentality that he has right off the bat. Today, on the other hand, is a beating that they got today against the Orioles.
Do we have to talk about that?
I mean, it's recent news. The game was over recently, and as you know, we are live every Tuesday on BronxNet Television at 5:30. The game, I'm still kind of wiping, the scars are still trying to heal from today's game.
Yeah.
The Orioles just had their way with Nova. He couldn't even pitch 4 innings. The final score 14-5, and it's the first time since 1925 that 8 Orioles players had 2 or more hits against the Yankees. I mean, division rivals with the Orioles, and almost 90 years before something like that happens. I mean, we've done it numerous times to them where we just go through the whole lineup and just crap all over them, but we're just not used to receiving that. I mean, Nova's first pitch of the start of the regular season. You think he's going to bounce back? You think this is just a
Yeah,
glitch?
I think he'll bounce
how
back.
confident are you in Nova this season?
I'm very confident though. I think he'll bounce back. I think we just we kind of still gotta get the new chemistry going. We still got a lot of new players, that we need to get together and just build on that. It's a lot of a couple new pitchers. Pineda, we got Tanaka who pitched very well, this past week. So I just think that we still need some time to put together that chemistry, and I think by the middle of the season, we'll be good. Hopefully, we get to Sheriff back. Who again, like I said in radio, I'm a little bit I'm getting tired of all the injuries with Teixeira, but I don't take anything away from his talent, but you have to be on the field to displace that talent, and they kind of need that chemistry to be built from the beginning of the season, so they can kind of flow throughout the rest of the year. But I'm very confident in Nova and in his potential, so I'm pretty sure he'll turn it around.
All right. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't mean to bounce back and forth. We touched on the subject before. I just want to shout out Harold from Hartford who wrote in. Did any of you guys have UConn winning the NCAA championship game on your brackets? I'm not sure if he's being sarcastic with this one because he's from Hartford.
Yeah,
so
he's
I'm
probably being
assuming
sarcastic.
he's kind of just rubbing in. Hey
Yeah.
guys, any of you guys picked the team?
Pick my team, but no, definitely I didn't pick them, on my bracket. I don't think too many people did outside of UConn fans. But
and even most UConn fans, you're talking about $1 billion for a perfect bracket.
Yeah.
You're probably not putting them in that perfect bracket.
Yeah, exactly.
For $1 billion,
if you want to win $1 billion.
Hey, you know what? The odds are against UConn here, and it is
so
$1 billion.
At least you have to have at least two brackets. One for your bias, your UConn bias.
That's what
and
I
then
did.
one for your $1 billion bracket. But listen, and neither of us is mad because we were actually both pulling for UConn to win this game. So again, hats off to UConn, and shout out to Harold, the whole Hartford, the whole Connecticut, really. I know you guys, are enjoying it and you are relishing in your team's national championship game victory, which is, the second one in what, 4 or 5 years now? When Kimba led them?
They won 3 years prior.
Yeah, so,
2 years ago was Connecticut, 3 years ago it was them.
Yeah, so, definitely, shout out to them. Before we leave college sports, I got to take a second to shout out our co-host on the radio, Face Facts, and his famous catchphrase, "Pay those boys," with the with the situation with all the college athletes. The reason I'm bringing this up is because the numbers have come in what Alabama, the football program, generated this past year, and it was $143 million that was generated by Alabama, which is actually more money generated than every team in the NHL this past year and 25 teams in the NBA. So pay those boys, please. When you're making $143 million from those guys, 'cause that's pretty much because the basketball team sucks at Alabama. So you pretty much know. I mean, when your team has won championships 3 out of the last 5 years, you know who's putting in that work and who's generating that money, the ticket sales, the jersey sales, the merchandise, and everything. So again, shout out to Face Facts, who is back in the lab. Pay those boys.
Yeah, roll Tide and roll some of that money out to the players.
Definitely roll Tide. I love when I get to shout out.
They should give a scholarship to everyone that attends the school.
Yeah, they can afford it. $143 million. They can definitely afford to give out a few extra scholarships.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense. 2 years in a row. They're national fans all over the nation with them. And obviously, Alabama doesn't have a professional team, so you live in anywhere in the state of Alabama, you're a fan whether you went to the school or not. Then you have all the alumni across the country, and then just the front runners that just like them because they're winning. So it definitely makes perfect sense. And football is the most popular sport out there in the U.S., especially as far as money-wise, because every single team in the NFL is on the Forbes top 50, even the teams that like the Tampa Bay Bucks. So, but
you're not going to touch that pro football. But
like to thank Harold for writing in. If you'd like to write in your fan mail questions, it's fanmail@realfansrealtalk.com. You could also like us on Facebook and send us messages on Facebook, facebook.com/Real Fans Real Talk. There's a Facebook group page where you could interact with us and over 100 other members of the Real Fans Real Talk community, posting your questions on a daily basis and interacting with all different types of sports topics. Just search Real Fans Real Talk on Facebook and request to be added a member. And our Twitter address is @RealFanTalk, so you could tweet us as well. And our individual Twitter addresses and email addresses are on the RealFansRealTalk.com website, so you could check that out and message us directly and have a chat with any sports questions that you have out there. And we are live every Tuesday on BronxNet Television, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're not a Bronx resident, you're watching this on YouTube, you could check out the live stream on our website, realfansrealtalk.com. Just go to RFRT Media, drop-down menu RFRT TV. You can check out the live stream as well as a bunch of our archive episodes, a lot of special episodes that we had, and we're going to have some more lined up for you guys, a lot of different famous boxers that we're interviewing. We interviewed recently, again, one of the Real Fans Real Talk family members, Iran Barkley. More details on that interview later on tonight's program. And our radio show airs every Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Blog Talk Radio Network, also archived on the iTunes Store and on our website, realfansrealtalk.com. So make sure you check that out. Different members, like Trip Young said, face faxes on the radio show. You can check that out and hear what a lot of other interesting topics that we don't talk about on the TV show. So, and other NBA news, you mentioned briefly the Knicks fighting for the 8th spot. Mike Woodson getting a lot of heat, and Coach Larry Brown, his former mentor, kind of stood up for him and said things along the lines that he thinks Mike Woodson is not getting not treated very well there. Exactly, he's taking a lot of the bulk for the losses, but when they win, it's because Phil Jackson was there sitting in the stands, and when they lose, it's Mike Woodson's fault. But I mean, I gotta say, it's Mike Woodson's fault. I'm sorry. Like I defended him all last year. I defended him for at least the first half of this year. And, the Tyson Chandler was injured for a few weeks. There's all different, types of things, but they're fairly healthy now. They don't, they don't have Kenyon Martin. They do have injuries here and there, but they're fairly healthy now. I think he plays Melo way too many minutes. We didn't get Tim Hardaway Jr. involved as much earlier in the season as he should have. Melo's tired down the stretch, and he's pretty much always the go-to guy down the stretch, and it hasn't been working. He's there not only for the last shot, which he's not making, but down the stretch, he's tired. Last 2 minutes of the game, you're giving him the ball, 4 shots in a row. He's missing, 3 out of the 4, and, they end up losing in these close games. So, and he played absolutely horrendous against the Heat, and the game before that against the Wizards with, I think, 9 turnovers, and Melo's just, he's so not used to passing, and people are trying to convince him to pass, and he's trying to do these fancy passes thinking he's Magic Johnson or something, and then they're just completely going out of bounds. There's nobody there, the no-look passes and no one there, trying to do too much of a fancy thing.
Do you think Melo's tanking the rest of the season?
I mean, he's not signed, so maybe maybe he has a deal with another team out there. Hey, if they don't make the playoffs, we'll sign you. And the next year, I don't know. I don't think he's really tanking. Not on purpose at least, but he is tanking.
So, Statman, we're back at this, back at the fence again with your Knickerbockers. They are fighting with the Atlanta Hawks, who put a beating on the Indiana Pacers in Indiana to keep that lead that they have over the Knicks. And you guys have 4 games left. 2 of them are on the road and 2 of them are at home, but it's going to be some very tough competition. I know that you feel like they're going to win 3 of these next 4 games. I, however, am not convinced by that.
They really have to win 4 out of 4 in order to really
put their stamp
even
on
make the playoffs, because there's 2 games behind, and there's no guarantee that Atlanta won't win 3 out of 4 and just seal it for themselves without the Knicks even having an opportunity. So they really need all four of them, and I think that they're going to play their hearts out because their back is up against the wall. It's been up against the wall for a while.
For your sake, I hope so. I hope they really do. Listen. Even though I said that they won't make the playoffs, and I still stand by that, I wouldn't mind them getting in just so that they could get brutally beaten up by Miami in the first round. So from that standpoint, I wouldn't mind if they made it into the playoffs, but I just don't think that they're going to make it. I don't see them winning. The games that you say they need. When you said really 4 games, but it's going to be a rough 4 games. 2 of them, like I said, are on the road against a very good Toronto team, very good Nets team. I mean, the Bulls have just had their number for maybe 3 years now. The Bulls have had the Knicks number.
Well, at least the Bulls game is at home.
Yeah, that's the thing. So at least they have it at the Garden. But I mean, if Joakim Noah plays anywhere close to what he's been playing these past couple of weeks, it's going to be a very long night at Madison Square Garden. But we shall see.
Chicago has 2.5 games ahead of Brooklyn. I don't think that. It's possible for Brooklyn to catch up, but I'm not sure. By the time, if Chicago beats us the first time, Brooklyn really doesn't have much to play for because they'll have pretty much have the 3rd seed on lock. So
I think this game tonight is going to kind of determine how things go, because if Brooklyn wins tonight, then that'll still have them in good shape to get to either that 4th or that 3rd seed. If they lose tonight and Chicago wins, and Toronto wins their next game, you know what I mean?
Toronto, and that's the thing, Toronto, Chicago, and the Nets all trying to battle for who's the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th
exactly,
seed.
Yeah. So that's the thing that's rough.
And the Knicks got to go up against all of them, and it's I just think the Knicks have the most to lose, so they're going to play the hardest. And they do have a lot of talent. I don't know anyone that could really argue with that. I mean, J.R. Smith hasn't been playing well the majority of the season, but he does show signs of life, and he goes out there with knocking down 3-pointers like it's an NBA jam, and he's on fire, and he could just throw from anywhere and it'll go in.
And he was doing. He was definitely doing it in Miami.
Was.
He definitely did. He did that in Miami. He played some great basketball. But it's too little, too late. We needed that, from him the entire season. He just wasn't there. Pretty much nobody was there except for Carmelo Anthony. Tyson Chandler came on late. He's been a rebounding machine the past, I want to say 2 months. But it's not enough. It's too little, too late, And Carmelo needed help, and I gave Melo his props. I've been giving him his props all season. He's been playing great basketball. He's been rebounding the ball at a very high level. He's been scoring. We know he's a scoring machine, but he's been doing what he can do. He's been doing everything he could possibly do. It's just that these guys are not knocking down shots. I don't think they feature Amari Stoudemire enough because I think he's actually been their second best player, over the past month and a half. Very efficient from the field, and they just haven't featured him enough for me, at least. I think that, but again, that goes back to your boy Mike Woodson, who most likely will be out of New York at the end of this season. I know Phil has already been looking at Steve Kerr, one of his guys from, back in Chicago. I've heard rumors about Mark Jackson even coming back to New York. So a lot of things are going to be determined after these next 4 games with the Knicks, maybe even where Carmelo Anthony ends up.
I would really be shocked to see Mike Woodson come back if they don't not only make the playoffs, but make a decent run in the playoffs. Like, if they make the playoffs and get swept by Miami, he's still getting fired.
Yeah.
If they make the playoffs and they beat Miami, obviously he's not getting fired.
Well,
if they make the playoffs and make a respectable 6 or 7 games, then you might want to. I think it's still even on the fence at that point. The only way he keeps his job is, for sure, in my mind, is if they make the playoffs and they somehow beat Miami in the first round. So that's pretty far-fetched. It's almost like I wouldn't say winning the $1 billion bracket because it's not that bad.
It's not
but
that bad.
Since we're taking a crap on my Knicks, I just wanted to point out, speaking of the bracket, The winner of the Real Fans Real Talk bracket, even though it was difficult, was myself, who happens to beat the one and only Trip Young sitting right next to me by a total of 5 points. Just want to throw that out there since my Knicks are getting abused right now. That at least I have something to be happy for. That I got a better bracket than Trip Young.
You got some. I mean, but you know what? At the same time, I still fill out my bracket with my bias and put Duke as a championship game. So even with that, but
I mean,
definitely
with that one, I
congrats,
put
though.
Florida. That's my bias.
Congrats. No, you definitely got that though. It was definitely a good look.
I actually put Duke in the finals against Florida because of the bias. Your bias versus my bias, just to set up that matchup.
Just didn't work
in
out.
The Real Fans Real Talk bracket. In the $1 billion one, I had a whole different setup, but
Yeah.
that one actually scored even more points. But it was fun for those of you that got involved with the Real Fans Real Talk bracket. Thank you all for playing. And we'll have one next year, as well as the fantasy football. We got a lot of things going on, so make sure you keep up with us on realfansrealtalk.com, or just like our Facebook page for updates on everything, facebook.com/realfansrealtalk. You could do all of that from our website as well. What do you think of the 2014 Hall of Fame class?
Well, you see, I got my red and black on first and foremost. So shout out to my man Alonzo Mourning Zoe, who had a great career. Battled the heart condition, still was able to come back. And be around for that Miami Heat championship in 2006 with Shaquille O'Neal and Dwayne Wade, which I know meant so much to him. And now he is headlining this year's Hall of Fame class. He definitely deserves it. Defensive Player of the Year, multiple, time All-Star, and again, world champion with the Miami Heat. You also have Kevin Johnson, who was on the list, played, his career with the Phoenix Suns for the most part. Dan Marley and Barkley out there for that time. They had some pretty good runs.
He was the face of the franchise before Barkley came.
Now he's doing his thing in politics out there. So shout out to him. And then David Stern, who recently retired, but they have the direct vote, and he was voted on. I mean, up until I guess recently, I mean, there's a couple of things that I wasn't feeling with David Stern, but I mean overall, you're talking about with 30 years, as being a commissioner, and anybody can see how much the NBA has grown during his time there. So, for the most part, I think he did an amazing job. He does deserve to get that direct vote straight into, the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, definitely no arguments there. Love him or hate him, you got to respect the man for what he did, taking the NBA so many steps forward. I mean, Michael Jordan had a bit of a part to do with that too, but I mean, the things that implementing the draft, I believe, and the draft lottery system, and all the years that he was there, a lot of changes that a lot of people don't agree with, getting rid of the hand checking rule, and there's a lot of times where you hate David Stern, and obviously he's LeBron James's best friend, and but aside from that,
it's okay, Statman, because I know how you feel about that. You like to throw those things out there and say those things, which is actually not true. Especially since your Knicks are most likely not going to make play.
That has nothing to do.
I'm just saying, I just want to let you know that, because I'm looking at the games. We spoke about the games that the Knicks have coming up, but we didn't actually get to talk about Atlanta's upcoming schedule, and they have the Pistons at home, followed by the Celtics at home. So those two games right there, that could, kind of seal the deal. The only thing you got in your favor is if the Knicks can win those games, the Hawks do have to play Miami, so they, hopefully Miami, for your sake, they'll beat up on the Hawks, and then that might help you out just a smidgen.
Yeah, well, the Knicks, if they do win these games, they would have the tiebreaker scenario possibly, because 3 of the next 4 games are division games, and they're one behind in the division race, and if it were to end up being a tie, the Knicks would have the tiebreaker based on division. Now I'm trying to think, actually, I might be wrong about that. I don't remember their head-to-head battles this year, because that's the first tiebreaker. Then the second tiebreaker is the division, so I got to get back to you guys on that one. But yeah, the Pacers struggling. I mean, do you think that they're going to start bouncing back in the playoffs? Did they even make the Eastern Conference Championship. Everyone at the beginning of the year is figuring that it's going to be Heat versus Pacers, almost guaranteed. Now they decide to get rid of Granger before the trade deadline. They picked up Bynum, but then he got injured, and they don't. It seems like the chemistry is off all of a sudden.
The chemistry is off. It's way off right now. I think that, especially, I think more so than the Bynum, the Evan Turner trade, for Danny Granger, has been a big issue as far as with the team chemistry, because there's a lot of things going on in that locker room. They're calling Evan Turner, a selfish player. This is what we know. What's the word around the campfire? Lance Stevenson, he's having this issues. Roy Hibbert has been back and forth, and Roy Hibbert has actually been struggling as of late as well. He was actually benched the other night in the first quarter, and he didn't really come back into the game. I think he played maybe like 8 minutes that game. So there's a lot going on in Indiana. They need to turn it around fast, because this Indiana Pacers team here will not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, because I got to shout out Face Facts, because he said that he felt that Chicago could get one up on the Indiana Pacers, and with the way Chicago's been playing, I think that they could beat Indiana if Indiana is not careful. So I mean even the Nets right now, they're very hot. You mess around and slip up, because they have those veterans now that they didn't have last season in the playoffs, that gives them that championship experience, that brings that in the playoffs with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. There's a lot of veterans on that team, so you really want to be careful if you're Indiana. I don't know if it's the confidence right now is shot or what, but they have to do something quick, because you had home court advantage throughout the Eastern Conference, at least part of the playoffs, and now Miami has surpassed you, and they're not turning back. And and when you guys are not only losing on the road, but you getting beat down at home, by the Atlanta Hawks, that's saying a lot about the team. So maybe they need to go back, have a players only meeting, and kind of get everybody back on the same page, because it has to be done quickly. So maybe they're regretting that Danny Granger trade now.
All right, we're going to take another fan mail question. Joe from Minneapolis, Minnesota said, who is more responsible for the Indiana Pacers' recent struggles, Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson, or Paul George?
You know what? I'm gonna say Paul George. And the reason I'm going to say Paul George, not that I feel like he's playing the worst, because he's still playing the best, on the team. But you gotta hold the head of the snake accountable first, and he is the team's. He's their franchise player, and I think that it's his job to kind of rein those guys in and get everybody back on the same page. So I'm gonna say Paul George. He has to step up and be that leader and get those guys back to where they were the first half of the season, when they pretty much dominated the league.
Yeah, it's one thing, like if, for example, I'm going to use a Knicks analogy. I always hated how the fans blame Patrick Ewing when they would lose a game, when, it was just like the finger roll, for example. He's the reason why they were there to that last point. But there's times when it's like John Starks in Game 6 of the 94 Rockets, and he's missing all these three-pointers, and the blame still goes to Patrick Ewing. When it's one game or something and somebody played bad, that's one thing, those examples. But when it's consistent and it's happening, you got to blame the like you said, the head of the snake. You got to blame him or whoever it would be. If the Bulls had a losing streak when Jordan was there, you got to blame Jordan, regardless of whether he's putting up, if he's averaging 25 or even 30 points per game, because there's something wrong there where he's not leading the rest of the team. He's not out there, getting in their face and saying, "What you're messing up here, you're messing up there."
Yeah.
So it's not just the coach. When you're the leader of the team, when you're the face of the franchise, like Paul George is, you got to go out there and you got to make sure that Hibbert's doing his thing. You got to make sure that all of them are doing their thing. So I definitely agree with you on that one. Thanks, Joe, for writing in. Once again, fan mail at realfansrealtalk.com, Twitter at realfantalk. You could tweet or email us your questions. I'm going to take one more. since we're on the subject of basketball, we'll switch over to college basketball again. And Harold actually wrote in a couple of questions. That's the guy from Hartford. He asked over or under 25% chance UConn repeats as national champions. So thank you, Harold, for both of your questions before earlier. I'm sure he meant it in a joking way, rubbing it in that his team won, but I got to go with under. It's just so hard to repeat at any given time because it's not like the NBA where it's, 7 games. The flukes happen. You see teams like Duke get eliminated in the first round as a 2 seed.
Yeah.
So it's tough to repeat in college basketball. It happens, obviously, but it's just not an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
so.
I'm going to agree with you on that. I think it's under as well, especially when you look at the fact that they are going to lose who I think is their best player, Shabazz Napier, who actually was voted player of the game in the championship game. He's also voted point guard of the year as well. He got the Bob Cousy Point Guard of the Year award. And they're going to be losing him. That's going to be a huge blow to UConn. So I would have to say under. And again, like I said, in general, it's really hard to repeat in college because again, it's March Madness. It gets crazy. So
it gets the name for a reason.
Exactly. So I got to say under. Even though that's a low, 25% is still low, but I would still say under. That's a big hit for them losing Shabazz Napier like that.
All right. Switching to boxing real quick, we got a big fight coming up this Saturday on pay-per-view, Pacquiao versus Bradley 2.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people out there feel that Pacquiao got robbed and he wasn't able to really bounce back from that robbery as he got knocked out against Marquez the following fight. Hasn't, made his comeback fight, not really fighting anyone too competitive there, but now it's back to avenge his loss against Bradley. Very excited about that fight. What's your thoughts on it, Trip?
It's going to be a great fight. What I like, even more is that when they fought the first time, as far as where the fighters were, as far as ranking-wise, Pacquiao was ahead of Timothy Bradley by a large amount. But I think, Timothy Bradley, with his past couple of fights, Provodnikov and beating Marquez, and I'm talking about just in 2 of the best fights. The Provodnikov fight was, I believe, the fight of the year, and they went at it slugfest style boxing match. I think so. Now it's a little bit more even, and we know what happened to Pacquiao. He got laid out by Marquez. I know he came back and beat Brandon Rios. But again, like you said, that was more of a chip shot fight just to get his feet wet and get back in. So now is the real test. And both of these fighters need this fight. For Pacquiao, if he loses this fight, you might as well say that this is the end of his career. And
unless he wants to just make some more money because of his tax issues and charity and stuff like that. Like he's not getting Mayweather. You might as well. He's pretty much probably not going to get Mayweather now as it is.
Yeah,
but
he
if
definitely
loses
not
that,
loses to Bradley. It's over.
Right now, the talks are like at a whisper when they were a roar a couple of years back. But let's answer Craig's question. Craig from New Rochelle writes, "Who are you guys taking in the Bradley Pacquiao fight? Who is your official pick there, Trip?"
You know what? To be honest, I gotta go with Bradley this time around.
I thought we were gonna disagree, and I was gonna go with Bradley.
I'm sorry, man. I really have to go with Bradley. What a huge difference. I know it's a day makes, but what a huge difference a year makes. And from that Pacquiao fight, he has really stepped his game up. Whereas, Pacquiao went down. When Marquez knocked him out in that ring, that, made a huge statement, not even that he lost the fight, but it's the way that he lost that fight to be knocked out and laid out planking on the mat. It's something that I don't think anybody saw, but what that did to Manny Pacquiao, it was something to where, now at this point I can't look at it and just say, oh yeah, I'm taking Pacquiao in this fight, even though he should have beat Bradley, in the first fight. But I just don't see it clear cut like it's going to be Pacquiao. In fact, I have it in favor of Timothy Bradley. You know, I mean, maybe Pacquiao will shock me, but I got to go Bradley on this one.
I mean, this one's really a coin toss for me. I'm not that confident because on the flip side of the coin, you do have Pacquiao who, you know, he only had the one comeback fight since the knockout against Marquez, but I'm sure since that knockout that his training regimen has changed dramatically, and I think he's out for vengeance. I don't think he wants to end his career off of an embarrassment like that and not be able to come back from it. So
Yeah, well, he's coming to fight. No doubt about that. He is coming to fight. But you know what? Again,
if I had to put money on it, I'd probably pick Bradley. But
I wouldn't even put money on it.
Yeah.
If
I had to, like, if it was a gun to my head and I had to pick
Yeah.
one and it was a life or death, I mean, the safer money would probably be with Bradley. But like I said, it's a coin toss. That's got to be 50-50. I wouldn't be surprised either way on that.
Definitely win this fight. You know, my thing with Pacquiao though is that I just don't feel like coming off the bad loss to Marquez that Brandon Rios was a tough enough opponent that, you know, to say, well, all right, he dominated Brandon Rios, so now I think he's ready to get back in that ring with Bradley, who I think has improved significantly since the first time those two, you know, fought. So it's anybody's fight again. You know, like I said, if Pacquiao wins, I wouldn't be surprised. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm gonna be, you know, it's not that it's something crazy if he wins the fight. But I'm just picking Timothy Bradley on this one.
Over or under 20% of the people that watched Pacquiao versus Rios heard of Brandon Rios before that fight.
Definitely under. If you had said under 5%, I would have said under 5%. Well, I mean, he's not a house. I mean, even with Timothy Bradley, I mean, people don't know Timothy Bradley like that. You know, we know who he is because, you know, we're boxing advocates and supporters of the sport of boxing. But the average boxing fan is not even going to know who Timothy Bradley is. You know what I mean?
I think they will know him, probably because he upset Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Now, but I mean, as far as, you know, Brandon Rios goes, I mean, nobody knows him. You know, I mean, there's a handful of fighters that I would say 70% of the country who are just casual boxing fans know. You know, of course, Mayweather, Pacquiao, Marquez, I would say Broner, Canelo Alvarez, the Klitschko brothers, of course.
I think you're going too far that there's 70% of casual boxing fans that would know all of them.
Maybe
I
not.
think
well,
70% know Pacquiao and Mayweather.
Bernard Hopkins is still around, so I'm sure they know him.
All right, well, let's not insult the fans watching the show. I mean, if you don't watch boxing, you don't watch boxing.
Yeah, I mean, most people tune in for Mayweather.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, that's why those are the big pay-per-views, and people want to see it, and people want to get together.
And they're still selling tickets. Don't get me wrong. They're still buying these pay-per-views because the last couple of pay-per-views have made a nice chunk of change. So,
all right, another question. Steven from the Bronx, one of our locals out there. How's it going, Steven? What is more likely to happen in this Saturday's main event fight? Manny Pacquiao wins by knockout or Bradley by decision? Between the two choices, I gotta say Bradley by decision. I doubt Pacquiao will come back and knock Bradley out. I mean, the first one went to a decision that didn't go in his favor.
Yeah, he didn't knock him out then, and
I think if you reversed it, that's probably more of a like Bradley might knock out. You know, like those two options are a little bit closer, but a knockout is just rough with these two. So I'm gonna have to say Bradley by decision.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with you. While we are talking about hitters, though, we got to go back. You know, if you guys can see over there next to Statman, we got that Derek Jeter, you know, jersey on the chair over there, number 2, because, you know, I mean, well, first of all, that's just El Capitano. You know, that's Mr. Class Act in baseball. But you know, he actually moved into the number 8 spot on the all-time hits list. You know, this is his last season, so he's got, you know, the rest of the year to continue to add on. I think he'll get down to the number 6 spot. I think that's pretty much all he'll be able to do since this is his last season. But definitely got to shout out Derek Jeter for accomplishing that. Another feat in what has been just a legendary career. 5 championship rings. Hopefully, we'll see number 6 before he retires this year. Those guys can get things together, get that chemistry going. But one of the greatest to ever do it in the sport of baseball. Classiest guy. None of the drama and the nonsense off the field or on the field. Just one of the best players to ever do it. So shout out to Derek Jeter, for accomplishing that, moving into number 8 on the all-time hits list. You gotta love it, man.
Oh, definitely.
He's a Yankee. What can I say? Yankee blue, man. All day.
All right. Well, one more question. Tony from Brooklyn writes in, where will Derek Jeter finish his career on the all-time hits list?
Like I said, I'm gonna say 6. I think that by the end of the season, he'll be able to get down to 6. I believe it's like a little bit over 100 hits that he needs. I think he can get that.
No, he's not too far. Yeah, if he gets a little over 100, then he might move up to 5. But
maybe okay.
Yeah.
So then maybe he can get to 5. I mean, he's looking like he's starting
4
pretty
is
well.
out of the question, but
Yeah, so maybe he can get to 5. I mean, listen, I want him to get as high as he can on that list. If he get into the top 5, that would be huge for Derek Jeter. I mean, either way, whether he gets into the top 5 or not, he's still going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he'll go in. It'll be consecutive years with Mariano, followed by Derek Jeter in back-to-back years, which will be a great, great, great thing for the Yankee organization. Producing some of the greatest players of all time, straight from the New York Yankees farm system. Just bringing them up all the way to stay their whole career, and right here in the Bronx in New York. So you gotta love that.
I mean, I wish he had more years of him just to be number 1 all the time.
Well,
but,
I mean, the
it's
injury
just-
last season kind of threw things off because I really thought that he could have gotten it, but you lose a season at this age, it's rough.
'Cause
But
when he hit 3,000, he was on pace to beat
do it. Yeah,
Pete
he was.
Rose, and it's just which is phenomenal in itself. I don't think anyone's really been at that pace before in ages. But
you got that health issues. You gotta stay healthy and be on the field. Hopefully, we'll see that this year straight through, and he can get into the top 5 because that would be an amazing accomplishment to add to everything else that he's already done in his illustrious career.
somebody else has done something illustrious in his career, and that was up until this past Sunday, The Undertaker being undefeated in WrestleMania, and that comes to a close. And you know what? I had a feeling, and if you listen to the archives of this past Sunday's radio show, which you could check out on realfansrealtalk.com, I asked the question to both you and Face, Undertaker or Lesnar, does the streak get broken? And you know what? That almost seems like something that you say, of course it's not going to be broken. No one's going to break it. You think every year that no one's going to break it. But Brock Lesnar, he's somebody that, he negotiates in his I think he negotiated in his contract that he wanted to beat Goldberg or something like that, back then. Or, he tries to have that. And I think, Brock Lesnar is he's a lot younger, obviously. He's, one of the big names out there in wrestling that's still a household name, because if you haven't watched wrestling in a while, you don't know some of these new guys and stuff. So to do something like that kind of creates a big spark. Like, wow, Undertaker lost at WrestleMania and he lost to Brock Lesnar. That just makes him more of a beast that he is. I don't like it.
Yeah, I wasn't mad that the streak was broken as much as I was mad about who broke the streak. I just don't feel like Brock Lesnar should have been the guy to break down and take a streak. I put a list together of guys that if they broke it, I would be okay with them breaking it. As much as I dislike Shawn Michaels, but he's one of those guys. Triple H, The Rock. I wouldn't even be mad if it was John Cena, but I'm just with Brock Lesnar.
I would have been
just
furious if it was John Cena.
Well, I know you would, but no, but I mean,
I'm not mad at it being Brock Lesnar because it makes more sense. Like, him and Triple H had a hell of battles, and
while we were in the building,
and
we didn't think the Undertaker was going to last another year.
Yeah, and aside from that one in Atlanta, they had the other one in WrestleMania 17 where they had a hell of a battle too. So
yeah.
I mean, those
Shawn Michaels tried twice.
I mean, those battles with The Undertaker, those were, I mean, yes, those of you out there listening, I know wrestling is fake. I don't even watch wrestling as much as I used to, but you know what? Movies are fake too, by the way. You know, it's called entertainment, so we're watching it. You know, it's an entertaining thing to watch. You see the action going on. And whether, obviously, it's predetermined who's going to win, but we don't know who's going to win when we watch it, just like we don't know how the movie's going to end until we see it. So,
and actually, they said only about 6 people actually knew that Brock Lesnar was supposed to beat the Undertaker. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure the announcers don't know, so that way they could have legitimate, you know, as opposed to just regular acting. It's something that, you know, a legitimate excitement when they see something happening, and that adds to their announcing abilities. But,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I would imagine that the cat wouldn't get out of the bag early with something as big as that, because that's some huge news for the wrestling business.
JR would say,
no, it's Vince McMahon was talking about Ted Turner when he started WCW. He was like, I'm in the wrestling business, and Vince McMahon's like, well, I'm in the entertainment business. So
you see, who was the last man standing on that one?
Exactly.
So shout out to Vince McMahon. No chance. That's what you got. But we had some beefing outside of the ring and on the ground, on the field and on the court. A couple of tweets were going on this week. Kyrie Irving and Josh Gordon of the Cleveland Browns were going at it, and Richard Sherman, you know, takes another shot at Michael Crabtree. Basically, what happened with Josh Gordon and Kyrie Irving, if you guys don't know, he came on ESPN. He did an interview on ESPN, and where he was kind of speaking about Kyrie Irving and whether or not he wants to play in Cleveland. Kyrie Irving took offense to that, so they were going back and forth on Twitter. You know, Kyrie told him he should mind his business. You know, and Josh Gordon, who is friends with Dion Waiters, Kyrie Irving's teammate, who also has issues. You know, those two also have issues, Kyrie and Dion Waiters. You know, they've been going back and forth on Twitter. I'm laughing at the whole thing. Same thing with Richard Sherman. He he signed an autograph picture of Michael Crabtree, and you know, they obviously, you guys know, they've been going back and forth since the NFC Championship game. And obviously they're still going to be going. They play each other twice a year, so this is going to be fun watching those two guys this season go, you know, back and forth. I want to see, you know, what happens when their heads up again, because this is going to get interesting.
I mean, tweefing is always exciting. Tweefing is a Twitter beef. For those of you that don't know, tweefing, it's always classic to see. It's almost like. It's almost like wrestling, where you have the going back and forth before the actual fight, and you know, it's just great to see. I mean,
gotta love it. You know what? But I do need to say this though. I'm so tired of all of the people that are taking shots at Richard Sherman, you know, in a manner that has nothing to do with football and how he, you know, plays the game. You know, just, you know, calling him a thug and just, you know, just the bad mouth and stuff. I mean, come on, let's knock it off, okay? You know, again, I mentioned this before. We talked about this, but we're talking about, you know, a Stanford graduate. You know, so let's knock it off with all the nonsense. You don't like the trash talk, whatever, but trash talk is a part of sports. You know,
trash talk has been going on a long time before him.
Long before, exactly. So
long after. And he didn't even say anything reckless. He just said it really loud to scare the little reporter lady. So I guess they felt bad for the little reporter lady.
But she was cool with it. You know, hey, listen, she got one of the
caught off guard a little bit. He's screaming at the top of his lungs.
Her Twitter followers jumped significantly after that interview, so I'm sure she was okay with it, and she laughed it off as well. You know, it wasn't anything that serious, and it wasn't anything where people should be taking shots at him on a personal level. You know, if you want to critique his game, that's one thing, but let's knock it off with all the extra nonsense that, you know, that's been going on.
Yeah, definitely. But it's about that time before we wrap up for this day in sports history, ladies and gentlemen. Just basically a famous event that happened on this day in sports history. And in 1941, Joe Louis TKO's Tony Musto in 9 rounds for the heavyweight boxing championship of the world.
The champ is here. The champ is here. In 1943, Stanley Cup Finals, the Detroit Red Wings win via a sweep, and they swept the Boston Bruins. So anytime I get to sweep a little dirt on the Boston teams, I'm all for that. So shout out to the Detroit Red Wings for sweeping completing the sweep of the NHL Finals on this day in 1943.
All right, and on this day in 1974, a lot of big stuff happened on this day. Hammering Hank Aaron hits his 715th home run, breaking the great Bambino Babe Ruth's home run record. A lot of people were not happy about that back then, and it was a great moment in history, both politically and in sports in general. So it's,
gotta love it. I loved every minute of that one. You gotta support, man. When these guys are playing baseball the way they play and breaking these records, man, no matter who it is, you gotta give that respect to them because it's not easy. You know, I mean, we're talking about 715 home runs. You know, you gotta respect that, man. You just knock it off with the extra nonsense. And Babe had it for a long time. He had it for enough time. And you know, now we're on to Hank. The record
was meant to be broken. Records are meant to be broken, and it happened to be an African American athlete, and the things that he went through during that time with the death threats, letters, and things being thrown at him. It made him want to do it more, but he was also scared at the time, and to be brave, and he played for the Braves enough to go out there and do it. It's definitely something that you have to admire, no question about that.
Exactly. Oh, quick shout out to Brian Pee Wee Cruz, featherweight boxer. He's undefeated, I believe he's 8-0 right now. He has
9-0.
9-0 right now. He has a fight coming up at BB King's in Manhattan this week.
I think 5 of those were knockouts too.
Yeah, five knockouts. We got a chance to chop it up with him at the Iran Barkley autograph signing. He will be joining us in the upcoming weeks. He's gonna be here, sit down on the show, talk a little bit of boxing, talk about his fight this week and how that goes. So we definitely want to shout him out, wish him luck with that fight, so we can and we'll be talking about that when he comes on to the show.
Final thought, Trip Young?
My final thought is going to be for you, Statman, and your New York Knickerbockers.
Wow, look, that was my final thought too. I think we have different words to say though.
For Statman's sake, don't let him down. I won't mind if you guys make it, just to give Miami a chance to crush you guys in the first round of the playoffs, because I think that would be worse for Statman to handle if they made it to the playoffs just to get beat down by King James, D Wade, and the rest of the Miami Heat.
You will be losing 2 points on shot for shot, because not only will they win 3 out of 4 or more of these 4 games, but they will make the playoffs. So that's 2 shot for shot questions there. That's my final thought. Shot for shot will resume next week.
Atlanta has their last 4 games at home, by the way.
But with that being said, for Trip Young, I'm Mark the Statman Skevich. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good night, everyone.
Peace.
Check us out next.
RealFansRealTalk.com. The orthodontist Trip Young and intern Tom for the white and black fans. Agent to Manhattan. I get all my facts from my bro Mark the Stats Man. If you're not tuned in, I recommend the CAT scan. And if your brain checks out, then you deserve a backhand. Sports, gossip, all the hot topics. RealFansRealTalk.com got it. They got the hottest bloggers.
Did Jeremy Lin hurt?
Well, log onto the site and you can hear it from them first. I'm talking about the latest. I'm talking about the greatest. Go check out the archives. Even tell a neighbor. Tell her Bobby sent ya. From spring to winter, tuning in should be the only thing on your agenda. Certified co-sign, you know what I'm about, son. RealFansRealTalk.com. I'm out, what? Real fans, real talk. Real fans, real talk. RealFansRealTalk.com. RealFansRealTalk.com. Real fans, real talk. Real fans, real talk. RealFansRealTalk.com. RealFansRealTalk.com.